State of the Franchise, the podcast that discusses franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I am Tom Stadler, here with my glorious co-host, Fred Dakin. Fred, how are you doing today?
It's good to be here. It's a glorious day in the stewed.
It's an excellent day today in the stewed, Fred. I'm feeling the love, feeling the happiness, the vibes.
I'm full!
I don't know if we ever talk about this on the show, but we usually do pre-show meals before we record, so that way we come into the studio with full bellies and happy hearts.
And we're going to do a contest soon. We're going to let a listener come in and eat with us and sit in on a podcast one time. You know, we're going to work out the details on that, but I know there's a lot of people who would just kill to come and watch us do this, have a little bite to eat.
What are we going to do, like a Willy Wonka type contest and like submit golden tickets out there?
Why would you say that?
Well, we'll have like little franchisee stickers that you can find.
Where are you going to put the golden tickets?
I guess it's wherever you get your podcasts, right? Like, get your golden stickers somewhere.
Just scan the RSS feed or whatever, RRS, whatever it is.
Or you can get like a QR code. You know how you do like those Pepsi contests and it's just like, oh, not a winner. I feel like every time I've done that, I've just never gone any further than that point. But lest we detract from our episode this week, Fred, we have a very exciting topic to wrap up Pride Month here as we are doing RuPaul's Drag Race, a very popular reality TV show involving a competition to become the next drag superstar in America, or America's Next Drag Superstar is the tagline for the show here. So we have on this week to talk to us about that, Jenny and Lainey Seyler. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
We are good.
Yeah.
We are good. It's good to be here. We're excited to talk about this show. We literally talk about it with everyone we see all the time. And most of our friends are into it, but we've got one who she just is not on board. And she's like, can we talk about something else? And we're like, no, we cannot. This is RuPaul's Drag Race. It's very important.
Gotta catch up.
It is the worst being that friend. If you have like a bunch of other people that watch a show and you're the only one that doesn't do it and you're like, oh my God.
Here they go again.
They're talking about that show again, and I can't stand it.
Yeah.
That's like me with sports
all
the time.
It's like sports. It's like sports, but drag.
But drag. But
I mean,
so better.
But this is a competition, right? Too.
True. Yes.
Yeah, so, and it really is interesting because this was the first time I had watched any of RuPaul's Drag Race. So obviously now was a perfect time as any to jump into it, see what it was all about. And I was surprised at how non-typical for a reality TV show it was. Because I think in my mind, I thought it was going to be more like America's Next Top Model. Like you would have RuPaul out there and be like, all right, let me see what you got. But there was a lot more games in this than I ever expected. Especially that first game you gave. It was a clip that was showing the game, the Snatch game.
Snatch game.
Yes, that's it.
Do you know what snatch is slang for?
Tell us.
Vagina.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here with a smile on my face, waiting for her.
Gonna say it.
Is it match game? No, close.
Snatch game.
Celebrity impersonation. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun show, and I can't wait to get into all the games. But I think to really get us started here, though, I'm very curious to, whoever wants to start, feel free. But what is your background with watching Drag Race? Like, what was the first time you had watched it?
I think you should start.
I'll start.
You're the OG, so.
Yeah, did you get into it from me?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
It's mandatory. It's like it's Saturday morning cartoons. We like during a season of Saturday morning RuPaul's Drag Race. So it's our like thing we do every week.
It's a routine. Yes.
Yep.
Lainey's an influencer.
Yes. Yeah.
So I remember RuPaul's show, which RuPaul had a show on VH1 in the 90s, and I do remember watching that. It was like around the time of pop-up video and like mid 90s. So I would have been like in middle school, I think. Just like very glamorous, like huge hair. I just remember seeing RuPaul. I don't remember the guests or anything like that or like the concept of a show, but I started watching it with my friends Craig and David when I lived in Boston. So it was like, oh my gosh, more than 10 years ago. Okay. And I think we started, season 3 was on Netflix. So I think all the seasons were on Netflix. So I think I started with season 3. And then we could kind of go back and watch 1 and 2. And then 4, I think, started right after that. So I was able to binge in the early Netflix days. So yeah, I mean, the show concept is like very entertaining. It's like really amazing performers having to perform every week. So it's like, what could go wrong? It's a brilliant concept for a reality show.
And when it began, it was like 2010?
Probably, yeah, maybe a little earlier. I know season...
Jeez, it's like I did no research for this. I think it's actually 2009?
2009, that tracks. Yeah. I would have probably started watching it in like 2010. Okay, yeah, wow, or 11 maybe.
So right at the start.
Yeah. I mean, 2000, the first season wasn't even like on a channel that I know of. Maybe it was on Logo TV, which is like a gay network that you could stream. And then it's bounced around quite a bit to VH1, and then it was on something else. And yeah, now it's just on VH1. But yeah, so it was on Logo. You could watch Netflix, and like, yeah, that's how I think I've made you watch a lot of the old season.
You did, yeah, because I remember when we were dating, and then I think, I don't know, you were watching like season 10 maybe or something like that. So I was very late to the game. And, you know, I was a little hesitant at first. I was like, I'm not going to watch this. Like, no, we're not into this. And then the more I watched it, I was just like, you just become totally vested. You're like, I want so-and-so to win. I can see what they're doing. I don't have time for the drama from this queen. Like, it's just amazing. So yeah. That it's, you know, it's reality television. You start to know the people and you get invested and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. So, and obviously drag is an art form, and it's just, it's incredible to watch what these queens are able to do.
Super creative. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something too that you really get to understand as you're watching, is that it is an art form, right? Like, culture is, oh wow, you get this whole new appreciation, especially for the transformations, like from in and out of makeup. My gosh, it's incredible.
Oh yeah. The wigs, I mean, people are like making their own wigs.
Yeah.
You know, especially on the early seasons. Like now I think they come in having spent like $20,000 or more on their wardrobe. Mm-hmm. But in the early seasons, they're like making it all themselves and like doing their own makeup. They have to do it all by themselves and figure out how to become this performer alter ego. It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, wow. Very fun though. So would you guys describe yourselves as reality TV fans outside of the show, or is this like the only thing you really delve into?
I like it here and there. Like, oh, let me just like chill, mindless kind of escape. I want to like, I'll watch some cooking reality shows, or like
sometimes there's like HGTV. That's home renovation, like Architectural Digest. Show me this celebrity's home. Like, we're very into that.
Oh yeah,
but otherwise not a ton. I feel like as a teen, I used to be really into it. Was like, what is it? MTV had like the Road Rules or whatever stuff. Just complete trash, garbage television, but I could just not get enough of it. So.
Right. No.
But not really. Like, this is like the only show that we are like kind of obsessed with.
Well, Great British Bake Off too. But who isn't obsessed with that though too?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a future pod episode, I think.
Oh, for sure. But we're gonna do it out in a tent.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be either super hot or super cold.
Yeah, for sure. The frosting's either melting or coagulating, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a downpour outside.
Yeah, like always. Every other week it's raining there, and they're just like, oh, the humidity's gonna mess with my bakes.
I'm like, you guys live in England, you know?
Right.
It's rainy there.
It literally never stops raining.
So, Fred, I know you were not somebody who watched a lot of reality TV, but did you ever encounter RuPaul's Drag Race at all over the years? Or was this like your first encounter as well?
No, not until like a few years ago I knew what RuPaul Drag Race was. And not even to be funny, honestly, if you would ask me like early in the days, I probably would have thought it was a car racing thing. 100%, because You know, I grew up in a small town, a very small town called Tawnytown, Maryland, outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on the Mason-Dixon line. So, no, I didn't really know anything about drag queens or any of that. And then I moved to outside of Atlanta, but not like the good part to learn about drag queens of Atlanta. I was in like the ultra racist part of Atlanta.
Hey, that's where RuPaul is from, Atlanta.
Oh, that's cool, because I had a feeling I was like, I probably just wasn't seeing the right Atlanta, because I'm sure there's a great scene there.
Yeah.
And then like I saw a show at Hamburger Mary's, right? That's the name of the place, and I had a great time. And I was like, oh, that's what this is, cool.
Oh wow.
So, and then I guess I knew there was a show, and then when you said this is what we're doing with these fine guests here, I was like, sure. So when I watched it, what I took away from it was I was like, this is a lot like the reality shows I will watch, which it's a lot like a cooking show, because it has a craft being used, or it also has cool themes. Like I saw some clips where they're like really leaning into like certain musicals, or they're leaning into like different seasons. You know, I'm a big spooky time guy, so like there's like a Halloween themed thing on any type of show, I'm there.
Stay tuned for next week if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Ooh, boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's a little bit of a little spoiler there. I'll finish up by saying that as reality TV on a whole, I don't like drama. Like in person, if like there's a fight going on, I usually hide in the corner. So watching like my fiance watches 90 Day Fiance, and that's the reality TV that I can't get into. And I'm sure there's probably flares here and there in RuPaul's Drag Race. Like I told you guys before we started recording, I just was taken aback by the quips and like the like stabs. There's like the quick one sentence like drive-bys of like ridicule, and I'm just like, I'd be crying in the corner. Like I would be gone.
Oh yeah, it can be vicious. Yeah.
I mean, that's like also an art form in drag culture is reading. So it's like reading someone down, like giving them, it's an insult basically, but it's supposed to be funny. It comes from like RuPaul gets a lot of inspiration from the show, from this documentary called Paris is Burning, which was made in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's about transgender people living in New York City, like height of AIDS crisis. It was just like during drag ball culture. So if you ever saw Pose or like know that show, it's so like a lot of this show pulls off of like that ball scene, which was really prevalent in New York City. Well, probably a little pre RuPaul, like voguing also comes from this drag ball. And like a lot of the challenges are inspired by that cultural moment, I guess.
Oh yeah, I was trying to remember if that was from the Criterion Collection or not.
It might be.
Yeah.
You can watch it, I think, on Netflix. It's very good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely a very interesting vibe to this show. And that's how I would describe it to anybody, that there's just an absolute vibe to RuPaul's Drag Race, especially if you see the commercials, right? And I think actually that might be where my first exposure even was to RuPaul's Drag Race was I always saw the ads. And at some point, I think I recognized that it was not the same thing as RuPaul's old talk show. I was like, wait, that's not the same thing, right? I'm just looking at them.
Yeah.
So that was something that was always in my head. But I think, you know, the first exposure I even had to RuPaul in general, and I'm kind of curious what you guys are, if it was in Drag Race or outside of that. But for me, it was in the movie To Wong Fu from 1995.
I've never seen that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. I think they just put that on Netflix too, or it's streaming.
I think
now.
I saw it on some streaming device recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just such a wow factor for me at that age because I was like 8 or 9 watching this, and you see Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo throwing on, you know, the makeup and the wigs, and you're like, whoa, they are totally different. And then you got to see RuPaul for the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, wow. And then this person has just kind of been in my purview throughout the years until this point where I started seeing the ads for her show. And it's just everything beyond that now, too, that I know who RuPaul is.
Well, that's good you guys recommend that movie, because I always kind of saw it and I was like, should I watch this movie? I don't know, because like from that time period I wouldn't expect it to be handled with like any sort of, you know.
Yeah, I think they do make a couple, like they probably use some words that we wouldn't really use now, but Yeah, I don't think No, it's good. It's
still
definitely good.
it's not out to like poke fun.
No,
it's out
no,
to tell like, okay,
it's telling a really good
well,
story.
Then I'm definitely gonna be watching that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it stands the test of time. There's probably some
does.
outdated parts of it, but I don't think they would hopefully now not cast straight men in these roles,
Yeah,
but
right.
Whatever.
Right. And I mean, there's even stuff from like 10 years ago that just hasn't aged well, right?
I mean, there's stuff from 5 years ago that you're
True,
like,
yeah.
Right. Like, what are we doing here? But yeah, there was a lot I don't remember from that movie. And I also did not really know at the time who Julie Newmar was, even though in the Batman episode, I was like, I watched all this Batman, the TV series as a kid. And you're like, okay, Julie Newmar now, perfectly. I know exactly who that is. So I'm like kind of interested to revisit it because I don't really remember the plot just outside of some set pieces and the costumes and that kind of being a real wow factor for me at the time. So come back to Drag Race now. It's like, whoa, this is kind of shades of something that I remember from very early on. And it's just sort of like this whole reintroduction to this culture, even though I've been to drag shows with you too as well.
yes, we did have drag queens at our wedding.
Yeah, so maybe we could talk a little bit about that too, and let alone talking about RuPaul's Drag Race, but what attracts you to drag culture and why is it something that's such a strong part of your lives to the point where you would want this at your wedding?
I mean, I do. I think the thing that the show does that you don't really get to see on a lot of mainstream TV is I love the creativity and the gender bending. Mm-hmm. There's like a twisting of expectations, I think, that RuPaul is like really getting you. I mean, RuPaul is like was in like a punk rock band. It's like very punk to be like, here, I'm going to make this like, glossy glam show, but also like you're going to learn about people who have different lives than you. I mean, no matter who you are watching the show, there's, from all walks of life, queer men, transgender women, transgender men on the show, non-binary people, Black, white, Latino, Asian, so it's you get to learn a lot. People are so creative on the show too, like to inhabit this persona and see someone take that to life is really cool. And you can go to a bar and see this like now, you could go to Milwaukee and go watch a drag show. And you can even like these queens who are on the show, they go perform. Like we're going to go see the RuPaul's Drag Race live tour in like a couple weeks. Nice. So we've seen a number of the queens from the show perform live before. So
What venue are they doing that at?
I think it's the Riverside.
Okay, that's good.
I think that is, it's the Riverside. Yeah. But
we saw one earlier.
Other queens have been at the Paps before in the city. So they're sizable venues.
This will be our third in a year.
I was hoping for Pfizer. That's what I was like. It's gonna be big. I want it to be big.
Yeah.
Let's get
flames
wild.
everywhere. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. RuPaul would just be like, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done like a big arena show. Like I remember seeing Motley Crue or like U2 and using these big pyrotechnics and just making this like this big living stage that's like
I could see that.
stage.
Well, they did have a Vegas residency too.
Yeah.
The RuPaul Drag Race. It's the same like Work the World tour, I think, and they had a stay in Vegas, and then the pandemic hit, but they were there having their stay, and obviously it was a big thing. So
they also made that into a TV show. So there's your franchise.
Yeah, and there's definitely, I think, things that comprise this that make it a legit franchise. I mean, RuPaul's Drag Race goes beyond just being Drag Race, right? It's not just the one show, but they also have All Stars, which is like an entirely different entity. And there was like a second show called Untucked, right?
Oh yeah, there is. There's like a behind the scenes show that
It's
they
like-
film at the same time.
it's where, so like you're watching the show, and then like they go through the whole rigmarole. They do their challenge for the week, and then they hear the judgment or the feedback from the judges, and then they go backstage, and that's when they film Untucked then. And it's sort of this behind the scenes of like, we just got the feedback, we're talking about it, we're throwing shade at each other, we're sometimes being nasty, somebody usually cries. And then it's like really just like this very short, like 15, 20 minutes
20
like that.
minutes.
It's very short, and then like they get called back it's probably like an hour.
I'm
for
sure
them.
it's a
just
while.
like a
Yeah.
long time
Oh, wow.
while the judges are deliberating and they're chit-chatting
Do
backstage.
you know
and-
what tucking is?
Well,
Come on, Tom, you got this.
oh man. Well, and I'm just guessing. Is it tucking the Johnsonville brat between the buns?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Good job. I'm gonna like ask you about all these like.
She
things.
loves to make people uncomfortable about this stuff. It's working. Tom's
you're turning
bright red.
red.
So we're going to rat you out.
Yeah.
Oh,
here.
man, and after eating some Johnsonville brats, although these weren't from Johnsonville, so
They're not a sponsor.
Tom's
so it
not going to
doesn't matter.
plug the brats until we get sponsored, just
Yeah.
so you guys know.
yeah, exactly. From now on, they are sponsored by generic brand brats.
Tom stuffs them himself. He's making them at home.
Brats. Fred and Tom Brandom. Franchise approved. Come and get them.
No.
Franchise the podcast into
Franchise
brats.
Yes, there are other shows. I know. I'm like, what other? There was like a Drag You show where they would like put people in drag as like a transformation. It was like a makeover type show.
They did like celebrity all stars
Yeah.
too, didn't they? I think.
wow.
Yeah.
Celebrity drag. So then they would put like a celebrity in drag.
Like one I remember they did was Noah Reed from Schitt's Creek.
No, it was the not Noah.
Who's he on Schitt's Creek?
It's the boyfriend, not Daniel's boyfriend.
Oh no, that's the wrong. Oh yeah, it's the wrong person. It's the I forget his name. It's
I
the
do
vet.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't he Ted?
Ted on the
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and I'm forgetting his actual name.
But yeah,
but it's
they're-
also something generic. They all
Yeah.
blend together.
Yeah.
And then we've told you about a lot of the queens are also on, they have like YouTube shows, which I do think are affiliated still with RuPaul. Like there's this production company, Wow Presents, and a lot of those are on, like
That
produced
YouTube
by,
channel.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably in some affiliation with, there's like Pit Stop, which is like, oh, a drag queen hosted after the show. I mean, it's a lot. Like we watch Pit Stop, not all of them, but
Well, there's Pit Stop, and then there's Fashion Photo Review, and
Yeah.
it's just like the bounds are endless with the
Yeah.
amount of spin-offs and shows and YouTubes and reviews and all of this kind of stuff, and that doesn't even include podcasts. They all have podcasts
Yeah.
as well.
Got
Yeah.
to.
It extends far and wide.
Podcasts, Patreons. You gotta like
oh, I'm
self.
sure there's
you gotta
some
self sell.
OnlyFans.
You
Yeah,
know.
Yes.
totally.
There you go, another stream of revenue,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like, gotta have the YouTube channel if you're gonna be kind of like you're part of the Drag Race show, but you're also like an individual, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's a smash hit when it comes out, and we can start getting into the history, I think, a little bit too. The show was greenlit in May 2008, and then first premiered, as mentioned before by Lainey, in February 2009. So on the Logo Network is where it debuted, and there have been 14 seasons to date, with 6 all-star seasons, and also 16 seasons of that show untucked. So that's basically like Talking Dead, like the show after the show, Talk Back. And then they've also had 12 international spin-offs from throughout
We've watched
the world.
UK and one of the Canada ones.
Okay.
I
I
would
watched-
love to watch the Canada one. They gotta be much more polite, right?
They are.
They're
definitely-
very nice to each other. They say sorry all the time.
Oh yeah. They still did fight, but they.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're far enough north that we understand there.
Yeah.
Anybody in the south is just like, oh, is that how they talk up there in that northern part? I didn't know nothing about that.
Yep.
So the show was marked as the most watched series on the Logo Network in its first season, and then became the most streamed series ever on Logo TV during its second season.
I was one of them.
And then the show went on to have all of its spin-offs, including Drag You, Untucked, and the RuPaul's Drag Race Holiday Spectacular.
Oh
Yeah.
Is the holiday episode pretty good?
Yeah, it's fun.
It was fun.
I
Yeah.
love a holiday episode.
Yeah. They're not like competing. So yeah, they're nicer. You might like it.
Oh,
Fred.
you know, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Everyone has to get along at Christmas.
Yeah.
Of course. So from the 9th season onward, then it switches from Logo TV to VH1, where you can just stream it on the VH1 app.
I think so. We've been able to like download it from Like we'll buy it from Amazon, or now it's on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. And so it's just been going on from that place ever since, and there have been 184 contestants.
Whoa, really? Wow.
So that gives you some perspective on what a big world this has created. And it feels like a lot of people who go on the show go out and just be like big celebrities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I even think just like thinking locally about Milwaukee, like I think Trixie Mattel is just about a household name within the drag community at this point, and even outside of that. I mean, she owns This Is It in Milwaukee now. She's like business mogul. She just bought a motel as well too, so she's got the Trixie Motel. It's out in Palm Springs. It's very expensive, but it's very cute.
It is cute.
And
That's also a show, like a home reno kind of show.
yeah,
Which is cool. Yeah.
I do love that about any reality show where like they can just like make a spin-off show about anything and like it will still be pretty interesting.
Yes, yeah.
But it's like, all right, we're setting up this new thing. Well, now we're going to do a home design show about it. And I just love that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, and it is interesting then, like you were saying, that they can go out and do something different, like those YouTube series, which is
Yeah.
definitely a very
Yes.
interesting thing there.
Yeah, we are very into the Trixie and Katya YouTube show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we watch it. You've
Religiously?
watched all of them.
Oh yeah, I've watched them all. So like, well, that was a pandemic fine too, where it was just like everything sucks and this is horrible, and then you go. And a lot of people were in that same boat
Yeah.
too, where they found it's their show is called they agree that it is the stupidest name ever, but it's like UNH basically,
Yeah.
and so nobody can
sound.
find them. It's the sound, they make that sound, and it's hilarious. And I found it, in the dark
I think
days of
I
the
was like, oh,
pandemic.
check it out. And then like a week later, she's watched all of them. I'm like,
I
oh,
watched
wow.
them all.
So
Yeah, got obsessed, got in real deep, and then just truly obsessed with these two queens. I mean, some of it's because Trixie is from Milwaukee,
Yeah.
so that's part of it. And then her
that
counterpart, Katya, is just, she is one of my favorites. So
yeah,
very
funny.
very funny, very weird. Just love it.
Like her thing is she's like a Russian gymnast hooker. So
Yeah.
it's like she does speak Russian, just like very quirky. I mean, it's all the personality. It's like a reality show, and who could have more personality than a drag queen?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And I even said, and I think it was season 7, right, that you had us both watch, and that was the debut of Trixie and Katya.
yeah,
Yes.
And I was like, this is what reality TV was made for.
yeah,
Yeah, like this is the type of competition where you get the big personalities and you get the high drama behind the scenes. So you really don't need them to like play up anything. They like know how to work it, and I think the drama works very well for that. So they don't need to be like fed stuff, like, oh, go start some beef with so and so.
Yeah, I don't think you need it. Yeah,
Right.
They
yeah,
handle
they'll
that all
do
on their
it
own. Yep.
themselves. It's a high stress.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right. So why was that one of your favorite seasons then, season 7? And what was your favorite moments from the show?
I mean, that season, I think I told you this, is kind of considered one of the not as good seasons, just like as far as the challenges go. But the queens who competed on that one a lot of them are still out there. Like Trixie and Katya obviously are massively successful, but like Ginger Minge, we've seen perform before.
Miss Fame. too,
Yeah,
is-
Violet Chachki is the one who won that season. She's certainly still performing a lot.
A lot of them from that season, and like
Pearl, well,
they-
Pearl doesn't really as
kind
much.
of
but-
yes, but and that's Pearl's from Chicago actually too, which is
Yeah.
cool. Any queens from the Midwest are
Yeah.
always fun to see.
Yeah, totally.
But even some of the queens will say that season 7 was kind of a turning point for the show
Yeah.
in some ways.
It
where-
like went up a level of how many people watched it, I think.
Well, and it was that, and it was just how the queens competed. Because, like, Trixie and Katya have talked about this on their podcast, where they say that, like, Miss Fame, as an example, like, she was, like, a queen who came to the show with, like, the $20,000 budget of, like, outfits and had a team already and was doing, someone, like, would do her makeup and obviously it's just nobody's doing her makeup on the show, but she is used to that level of drag. And so it kind of turned that corner.
Yeah.
And from then on out, it was kind of this leveled up show where there was this expectation of like, you cannot be a one trick pony.
Yeah.
You have to bring the looks. You have to be able to be funny. You have to be able to act. Like, they just do everything, and it's so amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some like appeal, I think, on some of the earlier seasons where it's not quite as,
I guess, refined, maybe.
yeah, it's a little more raw, and they sometimes the queens will come in and they already have like a catchphrase that they know they're gonna put on a t-shirt. So there's some of that where you're like, ugh, you know.
Well, and you have to think too that like the way drag has started out was like in bars, in these like nighttime kind of dark, dingy spaces. So then like to put it on this kind of shiny reality show is like such a huge contrast. So like those first seasons definitely reflect the fact that it came from this like club kid scene,
totally,
you know, in a bar, all of that kind of stuff. And it's kind of morphed into its own thing at this point. It's been on the air for 14, you know, seasons. So it looks a lot different than when it started out.
Yeah, like there even have been, like there's one on the UK season we just watched, and then someone, Rose, on a season 13, I think.
13,
was like, these people were like so talented. Like this one, the UK one, now I'm forgetting her name, Avid, was on the West End. So these are people who are like performing at that level, and then they're like, oh, what if I tried drag? So it's like you're getting people who literally could already make a career performing, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna try this other art form.
Yeah, and I think as you watch, you really do see that it is a performing art, right? And, you know, it goes from just kind of being a gimmick to like, hey, there's actually like a lot of different talents going on here. It really is an art form.
Kinda, yeah.
I'm more of a shoe leather guy when it comes to like reality shows. I want to know like, all right, what's fabric you're using? Why are you like? I want to know like all that dumb stuff. Probably most people don't care about. That's how I am with like the cooking shows. I'm like, no, what did you put in there? What did you do? What did you do? What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
How did you do that?
Yeah, like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever like? Because if you watch so much of the show, you must have had like. If I was going to create a persona, what would it be? Do you guys ever daydream of that?
I mean, maybe a little. I mean, it's different. So I guess like, well, we may get to this in a bit too, but like one of the things that I would love to see of RuPaul's Drag Race is to do like a Drag Kings spinoff, because they don't just to have that on the show would be awesome.
There was on the UK season, there has been one cisgender female, so like born female. There are other, you know, transgender women on the show, but none. And she was performing as a woman. What about as a man? Or like, can you switch? You know, do you always have to, you know, could there be a non-binary?
Right, who goes?
Yeah, because the whole thing is kind of turning around gender.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like amplifying stereotypes. Well, could you, you know, take it back the other way?
And I think it's important too. And maybe this is actually a great opportunity to talk about this, but what is the definition of a drag queen? Because I think to a lot of people who don't know drag culture, it's like, oh, you know, they are transgender. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily the case here, more often than not. So I guess then, how would you define a drag queen and a drag king then? You know, you can speak from that. And then are there any exceptions to those rules for somebody who would identify as non-binary or anything else?
I think as we've gone on here, it's just like, it's drag. And one of the big catchphrases on the show is that you're born naked and the rest is drag. Like, so in some ways it is like this idea that like, we're all in drag every day. But when you think about like a drag queen, like for the most part, when you think back to it as it's starting, it's like it's a man or usually a gay man, more often than not. Although they did just have a straight contestant on this last season, I think. Yeah. And it's usually a gay man dressing up as a woman, essentially. And so it's more than that, though. It's like taking on this persona. You become this character. And a lot of queens on the show will talk about that as well, too, where it's like, you're stepping into this new person and this persona, and you become this other alter ego in some ways, because a lot of them are like, I feel so confident. It's just a way of like channeling this other part of you that you may not have may not feel like you have access to in your day-to-day life. And so I don't know, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think too there is like you could be transgender and still have a drag persona. So the persona is not you. It's something separate from you. You know, heightened or more. Yeah, I mean, it's a performance part of what these people are doing. So it is different. Like you could be a man dressing as a woman. That's like a, you know, the straight definition of like a drag queen. And then a drag king would be like a woman performing as a man. But I mean, of course, there's this whole spectrum in between. And like, you know, that kind of, I think that's probably what is required for drag is like you're playing with gender.
Yeah, the idea is that you're
and
bending gender, it's questioning, it's all of that kind of stuff where it's...
Which makes it different than like... I mean, people could say like the church lady is drag. You know, there's a million examples of like Kate McKinnon dressing as Fauci, you know.
Yeah, in some ways that's
it's
like dressing in drag kind of, so...
It's a very old tradition in performance, but this is like something that came through queer culture, basically.
Sure, right. So it's obviously there's like a different type of expression that's happening in Drag Race compared to SNL, where you have cast members who are men dressing as women or vice versa. And even though there's still a performance piece to it, there's a different type of expression that's happening.
Yeah. And I even think some ways with the RuPaul Drag Race show, and they would even be ones to acknowledge it too, that I think so. What was that, season 12 that they had? It was like a trans man on the show for the first time dressing up in drag as a woman. And prior to that moment, like during the competition, like RuPaul would say like, and may the best drag queen win. And for someone who is a trans man, like those pronouns are, you know, kind of not okay. So from then on out, it turned into maybe, what is it, the best?
It started as may the best woman win, and then she switched it to may the best drag queen win.
That's it.
And they had, we kind of touched on this, but like they had some, the show has not always been like perfect when it comes to like transgender performers and transgender people on the show. Like they had She-Male was like a haha, like whatever joke, but obviously not funny. And so now they don't do that segment anymore. And I think initially, I could be wrong, but I think initially RuPaul was like, oh, it's fine. It's like, you know, they are, you know, the show does make jokes of everything, but it was not, you're like, this is like an extra marginalized community. Do we really need to make jokes at that expense? And like often I think sometimes in these performance communities, there can be like little cliques and groups and like are, you know, often in gay culture, like gay men and gay women don't always get along, you know, so there can be some of that. And that, you know, that has come up on the show. Like they haven't had any gay women on the show. One gay woman on the show in the UK version. Or like, is it okay to be transgender and perform as, are you still a drag queen? If you're already female, what, you know, does that count? Can you be a straight man and be a drag queen? Yeah. So, and now they're more like into that gender fluid and like, you know, initially on the show, they really wanted to focus on the hyper femininity and people had kind of gotten red for, or bad critiques for, you know, dressing more male, but I mean, which women do that all the time. We wear suits. Sure. So it's like, but I think one person came like, there was like a RuPaul challenge, like come dressed as RuPaul. And one of the queens came dressed as male RuPaul, which is a total look and got totally critiqued. I don't think that person would have gotten critiqued if they did that today. Not at all.
Yeah.
And on the Snatch game, they wanted them to always be a female character, and now it's totally fine to pick like a male character. Yeah.
But this was like within the last couple of years here though. So considering it's a show that's about drag queens, you would think they would be a little more ahead of the game and on the front lines of that kind of stuff. But in some ways got a little bit caught up in some of like the Mean Girls, like in high school kind of it, where it's like, well, this is our group and you know, this is how these are the rules and this is how it's going to go. We're going to wear pink on Wednesdays. And in some ways they were like, maybe should have been a little bit more accepting of other, because forgetting that the whole idea of drag is to like bend gender and question and be queer and all of those types of things. So I think that like in some ways, it took them a little longer maybe than it should have.
Yeah, I think they realized the fans of the show all really liked that too. So maybe there was, I have no idea, some like fear of being too weird for mainstream. But actually, I think people love how weird and quirky and interesting a lot of the people are who perform on the show. So,
well, I wonder if any of that had to also like maybe come from like the executive, the business side of things.
Yeah,
because I know like in television and reality TV, whenever they're like breaking barriers and having gay representation or whatever, it's usually like, well, we need kind of the most basic recognizable one, not so people are like, because more people are okay with it, but they're okay with what they know. And I think they think most people at that time probably knew it's a man dressing up as a woman. That's that. And don't start opening other things for me. We just got to this, you know? So like I think that's probably playing into it too.
Definitely.
and they like kind of earned the right over time to like keep going that way and like
14 years, you said?
Yeah.
14 seasons.
14 seasons. Yeah.
Which is crazy. Yeah, and I was even just pulling up something too that I remembered reading from RuPaul. They were being interviewed in an article from Vulture. They were asking them, what did you think about all that happening with the controversy around the term she-male? And RuPaul was like, I was upset with the fact that people would think our intention was malicious. The show is always trying to come from a place of love, and people called us out. They knew our position was from a place of love, and they kind of used it to misinterpret the purpose in order to further their cause, and bring attention to that. But I think as you kind of read it, you understand that RuPaul is probably a little salty in that regard for being called out.
Yeah.
But also maybe recognizing too, hey, we're newly sensitized to these things, and also trying to commit to like spreading love and acceptance and understanding, So I think it's kind of apparent when you look at a show like this that it is a place where a lot of people, from any spectrum in the LGBTQIA plus community, that this is somewhere they can feel represented on screen, right?
Right.
Totally.
And we talked a little bit about Fire Island before this podcast, right? And, it's one of the few things I can think of where you really don't have to dig for something to find gay representation in any of the streaming apps, in a movie, TV show. So, I think we're getting a lot better in a lot of different places, but certainly there's nothing to the level of a show like RuPaul's Drag Race, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I did want to elaborate a little bit more on the competitions, though, in RuPaul's Drag Race, because we've talked around them a lot so far, but we haven't necessarily gotten into, anything beyond like Snatch Game or a couple of, things here and there. So I guess what are some of your other favorite competitions that they do on the show that really ramp up the energy?
Yeah, they do. So like it's like a regular competition show where each week there's like a new big, competition that they have to compete in. Mm-hmm. And then they also have to do a runway. So, and then there's always a theme on the runway. So I don't know, Veil was one that was recent. So all the queens have to do like their interpretation of a Veil runway. Well, so that's kind of like the concept of the show.
Yeah, the best one is like Eleganza Extravaganza.
Oh yeah,
you're just like they do it like all the time, but it's like it's just fun to say. So it's usually like turn it out, to the nines. The most glamorous look you can pull out, and they turn it out.
So the runway is itself like one of the competition pieces because they get judged on that, and then there's. Yeah, they definitely have built in like consistent ones that they've done, like Snatch Game. They do a Snatch Game every season.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like it is the best, and it's always like, are you going to make it to Snatch Game?
Yeah, and
can you pull it out when you get there? Because there have been some bombs. Not to mention, Trixie Mattel bombed hard on her Snatch Game in All Stars, where she went to do RuPaul and impersonate RuPaul, and someone lied to her real hard
that she was good.
It was not good. It was like cricket sounds left and right. It was
because you have to do a celebrity impersonation. Yeah, and it's like always so fun to see who people will pick. And some people picked other drag queens, and Trixie picked RuPaul, and it was not good.
It was not good. that was a bomb.
Trixie Mattel herself is
basically Barbie or Dolly Parton.
Very white drag queen.
Yeah.
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 Wow, that's tough.
So that's a good one. I know the musical is always a favorite
Yeah.
of yours.
They usually do a rusical, so it's like a. There's a lot of puns on this show.
Sure.
You would love it.
They love
Tom.
a pun. Yeah.
Yeah, and the catwalk, for context, is just them walking down the runway wearing dresses, and then the rusicals, like music, singing. I mean, there's so much lip syncing on this show.
Yeah, lip sync. I mean, that one typically, I think sometimes they've done the rusical where they have to sing live.
They have to.
And they have to dance, and they're learning it like overnight. They'll usually write a song like at some point in the season. They'll have to write like a verse to a song and record it.
They do a roast often.
Yeah, they do like a stand-up roast, which would be so hard. Like, so it is like there's usually always someone who has like stand-up comedy background. So on the show, so you're like, okay, if they make it that far, like they'll do well at that. Yeah, or like who is good at celebrity impersonation? But that is like a drag. I don't know what's the right word, but like that's something that people do. People impersonate like Britney Spears as their career. You know, Cher,
Right.
Tina Turner.
I mean, is it even that much different than what we have to do for improv?
Not, I mean, yeah, a lot of it is improv.
Oh, yeah. In some ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've even talked about this so far, but improv is how we actually all met. We all have an improv background.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of sounds without the competition part, but the personas,
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of something else that I'm looking at here.
Oh, 100% WWE. Yes. Oh my God. It's absolutely the exact same.
It's a show. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at Tom's picture of signed picture of The Rock.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It is.
It's totally completely campy, over the top. Like,
Yeah, camp
They-
is the big
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like wrestling though, in that they have to be able to do a bunch of different things. They have to be able to act. They have to be able to like move a certain way. They have to be able to dance. They have to be able to do their own makeup. You know, they have to be like a makeup artist.
they do
Oh,
like
yeah.
a makeover challenge typically at some
Yeah.
point. They often will make them do like a materials challenge, like a design challenge. Like, here, make this out of nothing.
Yeah, there are so many talents that have to come into being a drag superstar. Like, you can't just pull up off the street and, you know, it's not like any of us in our room could just suddenly go, yep, I'm going to go do this now.
I guess that's important to note too. Like we sit here and we're like just critiquing, and you're like, "This is ridiculous. This is terrible. Like you don't even know how to dance and like all this stuff." Or like, "What did you sell? That's trash." And you're just like,
Could I do it?
"No, I can't do any of
Yeah.
this. Like that's absurd." It's just like me sitting on covered in crumbs on the couch, just like, "Yeah, I could do that." And you're like, "This is garbage." And you're like, "It's not. It's still." Amazing, even at the lowest level on the show.
It's no different than like Chet and Rippin sitting on his couch going, I could sling it better than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, totally.
morning quarterback.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you just need to hit him in stride. That's all it is. Yeah, so it's definitely impressive. But I think with that, we can probably move on to our coulda, woulda, shoulda segment today.
I'm going to start.
Do
Okay.
it.
Because I just have
Kick
the
it
one
off.
after all this. Drag Kings. I just think that that should be like I should have heard of that as a show already. I feel.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done that yet.
The entire lesbian community would agree with you as well. So
Maybe that could be some of it. It's like there's more mass appeal, I guess. I don't know.
And that was something I was kind of curious about too. So I know you said now over time that there have been a lot of different types of people that have come in, but primarily over the run, it has been gay men dressing in drag. So I was curious, what actually attracted you to this show, knowing that this is probably something you probably would have changed had you had the opportunity, that it has not had a lot of representation for gay women doing drag, at least not early on.
it's a very good question.
It's like historical. What I said, like gay bars are often separated. It's like this is a gay bar for women. This is a gay bar for men. They're, there's not as many gay bars anymore now that marriage is legal, and it's like not something people would need to go to like find their people at a bar. So often it was separated. So I think sometimes the culture evolved
The
separately.
clash, yeah.
But obviously there's still tons of women who perform.
Well, and I think like for me, it's like this idea of turning femininity on its head too, where it's this idea of like a gay man as a woman And me as a gay woman too, it's sort of this idea of like, I can see this like sort of ridiculous representation or presentation of a woman. And it's just like, again, it's like this idea of playing with gender. And I think it's some of that energy where it's like, there is that idea of like me, like my persona and identity is turning, quote unquote, turning things on its head. To the norm. So then there's this idea of like with drag and like seeing that contrast and just seeing it played out, I think has been something that I've always like personally associated with pretty heavily.
Okay. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's always been something that's kind of gone through my head because I was like, yeah, is there a different perspective? Because as a complete outsider watching this, you're like, okay, I can make my best assessment, but you really don't know unless you're in the community and, you know, or understand where somebody in the community is coming from. And to that end, I think Drag Kings 100% seems like something that, you know, is the next evolution and feels like there's plenty of room under this umbrella for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be just like a contrast to the drag queens. I think that would be really cool to see. I do think that Drag Kings is a smaller subset of like a drag scene. I just think about here in Milwaukee that like UWM always does used to do their annual drag show. And more, you know, 3/4 would be drag queens, and then you'd see a drag king here and there, and like, I mean, they would be absolutely amazing, and you're just like, what? This is like incredible, but like there are so few of them, and I guess I don't know if there's like the outlet necessarily for it, but it's like the horse
maybe there's more
cart,
acceptability of women being able to perform anyway. I don't know.
Oh, don't look at me.
Okay.
Everyone looked at me. I was like,
You looked like you had something to say, so we were gonna let you get in there.
That's it.
oh, I was at one point gonna say they need to talk to the Discovery Plus people because, like, I think I mentioned before, my fiance likes 90 Day Fiance, and she goes to Discovery Plus, and there is so many subsets of shows that are like, oh, it's these two people's story, this two people's story. They need to go Discovery Plus because I'm guaranteed we're gonna get all those shows.
All right, let's do it.
I also had a quick question about the Drag U. Was it always someone willing, or was it ever because I kind of want like the Queer Eye style show where it was like someone who's uncomfortable. That'd be the Drag U show I want to see. Where maybe they go through it, live it, learn from it, sort of
That definitely
deal.
was the idea, is like, we're gonna, like, often I think what RuPaul will say is like, you put on this drag and it's like, oh, you gain confidence and whatever. So I think it's along those lines, but I think they were all willing.
Well, and I think they would kind of do that on the show occasionally with the makeover challenge, where they would bring in some, you know, normie basically, or be like they had ex-military guys come on, and like, put them in drag to the nines, and like you know, they had them all like just shaving their face and everything, shaving their giant beards off and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, and that was at a time too, it was earlier on in the, you know, the history of the show where gay marriage still wasn't legal, and there was a lot less acceptability around it. And, you know, they were changing minds of some of these guys that came on and got made over. So there was some of that where that was kind of like a smaller version of someone who was quote unquote uncomfortable with drag and really had kind of a change of heart while they were there.
Well, I think there's even a call for that recently too, right? With like the drag story time that's going on.
Oh, God.
And it's like, I don't think people quite get what drag is. And so they prejudge it before they actually understand it. Because it's like, they're like, oh, well, what if our kids want to do it? And you're just like, and?
Shakespeare's been doing that for how long, y'all? Like, it's okay.
Which, that was something interesting to me to think about, because I feel like I remember learning about that back in high school. It was kind of a totally different situation. They weren't allowing women to perform.
Yeah.
Then you have these guys dressed as women. I like to think that some of that sat with them, and that kind of sparked something down the lines, because like it's so weird and kind of like ironic that started as like, well, we don't want them in there, but then like they're like, but this, I like this, you know?
I'm sure that there have been drag performers for 1,000 years, you know.
Since probably back in Rome too, they were doing performances and like that.
Well, Rome was probably like in some ways more woke than current day.
Just so gay back then. Just the gayest.
We can unpack that.
Our Rome episode, Rome After Dark.
It's a franchise.
Empire or franchise, very similar.
So continuing back with coulda, woulda, shoulda, too, I think I've really leaned into the competition aspect of this. And I like the idea of doing an amazing race crossed with Drag Race.
I like that.
So what does that look like?
Okay, so are you guys familiar with the Amazing Race?
Yes.
Okay, so I talked about this a little on our Survivor episode.
It's like a glorified treasure hunt, right?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, it's a scavenger hunt.
Scavenger hunt. That's
yeah.
what
I
I
love
meant.
the idea, though, because at first I was like, oh, that's just a funny pun. But when you think about it, you're like, well, no. What if you have, two drag queens hanging together? They get in like a car or any other way that they need to travel across the United States. And it's like, hey, maybe the final destination is going to be Las Vegas, but we're going to stop in Chicago along the way. So you need to make it to this theater on the way. So you're going to do like a karaoke competition. You have to satisfy the judges in order to get a clue as to where you have to go next. And it continues to be like you have all the same competitions in Drag Race, but on
Like a road trip too, yeah.
Yeah, like they're going to Milwaukee. The Milkmen need a 7th inning stretch show.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make it up and perform it.
Right? And
I like that.
Yeah, and then you do exactly as we were just talking about. And, it's like you get all these people exposed to it that maybe they haven't seen it before. And they're like, oh, what is this? Oh, this is really fun. And it is fun.
Yeah.
Except drag queens are late to everything, so nothing would run on time.
Yeah,
and
that's
everything
true.
would just go off the walls right away.
That sounds fun, though.
It does sound really
Good
entertaining.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just kind of my silly fun thing. And I was just thinking that could be a fun one to do. For
That's
Mashup.
the next one in the franchise.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
RuPaul's is going to tear the lid off of that.
But
Yeah.
we'll let you two go nuts if you had ideas that we haven't quite covered yet.
I feel like RuPaul has done a lot of them. Like, I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
would want to see like a behind the scenes, but there kind of is. Or like, I don't know, meeting them like a documentary type thing. They do have like HBO has a show We're Here
We're here, yeah.
that is kind of like Queer Eye but drag. But it's not. I mean, that's not a RuPaul spinoff. That's it is 3 performers from the show, but it's not produced by RuPaul or anything. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's happened. It's like she's done everything except to have women on the show.
That's the gaping hole in her resume there.
Yeah.
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 I just like hearing more drag shows that aren't just RuPaul's.
That's true.
I mean,
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, good.
I've seen some other, like there's one that people did here that was like Camp Wanakiki.
Yes.
I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So more puns. But it was like they went to camp and it was more like, summer camp, but it was more for campy queens. It was like a YouTube series. And then someone else I know has done one that's a little more like spooky, because that's definitely like a
I'm listening.
genre of like to be kind of like spooky into like vampire sort of drag performance, or like a little more goth type thing. So
Emo, yeah.
that's another
Subset kind of.
so subgenre of drag performance.
Some more holiday episodes.
Yeah, more holiday. I mean, I would love to see too, like, I guess this isn't really a spin-off, but like some of the queens perform their own things. Like Jinx Monsoon and Ben de la Creme have done like a holiday special. It's on Hulu. You can watch it. It's really good.
It was
very
really good.
delightful.
Yeah.
They it's like a scripted with song and dance numbers throughout.
I think it's an hour too, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And so something like that, or like Trixie and Katya when they went on tour, it's also like a scripted live show. So what could you come up with? I would watch that.
I don't know. I think the Drag King is still the one that lingers for me, because they do so much on the show where it's like they're doing design challenges, they're doing dancing, they're doing acting, they're doing improv, they're doing stand-up. They're like, it's just like they don't leave any stone uncovered when it comes to drag on the show. But a Drag King, for the love of God, let's see one of those either on the show or some sort of spin-off. Like, I think that would be really cool.
I feel
to
like
see.
you could still have someone compete,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the mix of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're definitely headed that direction. It seems like it anyways.
Yeah, there are probably just fewer performers, I think,
that's
in
what it
general.
is, yeah.
So harder to find a good, casting is everything on these shows. So
Certainly seems like it. There's a lot of big personalities.
Yes.
yeah, we watched a couple episodes of Canada season 2. It was really bad.
Yeah. It was kind of unwatchable.
I was like, wow, I
Too
don't.
nice, Fred.
Oh God.
Season 1 was so good, so good, and then I was like, I guess they ran out. It was just like small country Canada. But yeah, I was like, oh man, all these personalities are boring. I'm not drawn to any of them.
I mean, so much of that show too is like it's the idea that like you have the talking heads, so it's like when they're
you
on
do
a
have to be
drag
good, yeah.
and they're talking about the show, and it's just like that is what makes them come alive. And like some of them are just like so hilarious in that like one-on-one setting with the camera. Just
Trixie and Katya, I think that is like what they were really good talking heads. Not everyone's a good talking head.
Yeah.
yes,
Well, I'm sure some people do the drag race thing and like their persona is like their way to not be shy, and I'm sure they're like one
100%.
person is like I don't want to like have to talk to people.
Right, yes.
That's what that person's for.
Yes.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I remember that when I think we talked about watching like all these people with this big personality, they're making jabs, but at the end they're all clean up, they have their makeup off, and there's just quiet, smaller guys just like folding up, being quiet, putting it away.
Yeah.
That's my favorite, just going from the extreme to just like, all right, we gotta pack up our stuff and get out of here.
Which is so funny because outside of makeup, Trixie Mattel is like the most basic looking person you'll ever come across.
Yeah.
such a boy. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Walking around Milwaukee
Yeah,
somewhere.
he's
Yeah.
like pass him on the street, don't even recognize who he is. You've probably seen him like 6 or 7 times and not known. It's almost kind of like a superhero in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Definitely.
Totally.
So I think that brings us then to the end of our show here. But before we finish, we do have our power rankings segment. What I was thinking for this week is we would do our top favorite games or competitions from RuPaul's Drag Race. But also for Jenny and Lainey specifically, I'm very curious who your favorite 3 or maybe even 1 or 2 drag superstars are.
Oh boy. Oh no. Don't make me pick.
You have to.
Well,
So
yeah.
here you have a chance to highlight a lot of the people you've been talking about, like Katya and Trixie Mattel, but also maybe give a reason why you like them so much more than anybody else.
Yeah. Should we start with top competitions here?
Yeah, let's kick off with competitions. We can talk about that.
I'll go.
Yep.
Snatch Game, obviously, is comedy game where they impersonate a celebrity. Probably the Rusical. I think those are really fun. It's usually pretty cheesy, scripted, dancing, singing, number. Very fun. I'm going to count the runway as a competition, even though they do it every week. It's not like new, but yeah. Theme. There's a theme. They all have to like dress to the theme and interpret it as their persona would interpret the theme.
I want to ask real quick, do you think they can hear the judges when they're walking?
I think they can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're also sometimes not very nice.
No, I know. And they're like always kind of talking like the whole time.
And always seems within earshot to me.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Yeah. You can tell, like, I wasn't sure if you could, but you can tell they can hear. Yeah. Not always, like every single, I don't think that they can have music playing while they're filming, even though we hear music over the top.
Right.
Well, and especially the couple guys they get. Who is it? It's Carson Kressley and Ross Matthews.
Yeah.
Ross Matthews.
They're catty.
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
That's what makes them good judges. Yeah.
And Michelle Visage.
They're always
You
like
can't
doing
leave out Michelle.
puns. Yeah. Michelle Visage is every week. she's
Biggest
there.
drag queens of them all? No.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
delightful.
basically.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised at how fast you had those at the top of your head there. She's clearly put some thought into this, and I've not prepared at all whatsoever. My turn. Great. Let's see. So, I love the roasts. I do think.
Oh, yeah,
those are always so much fun. I love when they do advertising challenges.
Oh, yeah. Those are cool, too.
Where they get
say yes
like,
to all of them.
of course, you love the show. But they get like a product and they have to create like a little like bit about it and do a little blurb, and they'll have to do this like 30-second, 60-second commercial, and they're usually hysterical. I feel like I remember watching some of these and you're like, I'm going to wet my pants on the couch. Like, this is just like split your sides funny.
It's very creative. Like,
Very
puts your
creative.
creative juices to work.
And I mean, that's hard. That's like advertising stuff. Like, that is not an easy thing to do.
More skill on top of everything else.
Totally. Yeah. And a third. Oh boy. Well, actually, so they do like mini challenges, and this is the one that came to mind. But it's so silly. But they production will make puppets of all the other drag queens, and then they have to like pick one out, and then like they're picking out like another one of their drag queens, and then they have to like be them as a puppet.
Oh my god.
And do like a little
It's
improv
very
scene.
short and it's a little challenge, but I always find it very, very funny, and it's closely related to the reading challenge as well too, where they are, just sort of, ribbing their contestants with the silly things that they do and the habits and the funny things they say, because they spend all that time together on the show. So of course you pick up the silly little things that they do often. And it often is very catty. Sorry, it's not very nice, but Fred is just so wholesome.
I'm such a wholesome, sweet person.
Yes.
I can't help it.
Yes. So those are probably the ones that I enjoy the most on the show.
Wow. Those are fun. Fred, do you have a top 3 or maybe even just a top 1 that you liked?
From the 2 that I saw, the one that stood out for me, they did like a nude reveal. I mean, it was like a skin suit, which at first I didn't know what was going to happen, because I was like, okay, let's see. But it was actually very cool how they approached it in all different ways, and how they like created like the form of the feminine body and just stuff like that. I don't know if you caught that one.
Yeah, I did see that one. That was a very interesting one, but something that jumped out to me a little bit. I was very curious about this, knowing that it's mostly, just men dressing as women. I was like, well, why are they blurring the nipples out?
Yes.
I know. Yeah. I don't know.
Was that like a logo TV thing?
Because it's not real. It's like,
I mean, they're fake, right?
yeah. I don't know.
But it's like, maybe it's like you can't have like just a picture of some boobs on the TV.
Yeah. I mean, they're lifelike, but yeah, it is kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just kind of strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly.
Yeah, it was silly. So for me, I guess I'll just call out the one at the end, the lip sync for your life.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, that's good.
Which, I mean,
That is Tom Goodwin.
which, is for context, basically the 2 losers for the week have to literally lip sync to a song for their life, which now that we're getting to the end of our episode here, I mean, y'all know me. I'm a karaoke guy.
I was like, what would be your lip sync song?
Oh, man, that's a good one. See, this is what the power rankings should have been this week.
Yes.
This is a tough one because it's got to be kind of a dance hit of some kind, right? It can't really be like Tom Petty or something.
It could be.
You'd be surprised.
Do
at
Ave
what
Maria.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Bring the house down. Yes.
Man, I don't know. Fred, what would you pick?
I just do Ave Maria.
You would actually do that. Oh.
Yeah, and I'd have like a fake dove or something like that.
Yeah, you could make it funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Man, this is a tough one.
You gotta pick something that like you could lip sync, but also you don't have the range for. Like I can't sing Ave Maria like with perfect, but I know like I can handle that part.
Yeah.
Man, maybe I do like "Let's Go Crazy" by Prince or something.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Or like,
Are we gonna let the elevator break us down?
Oh, let's go.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
or "Don't Stop Me Now" by
Any
Queen.
Queen would be good.
Yeah.
So
I want to break free.
yeah, so that goes back to you two now. What would be your lip sync for your life songs?
I mean, I'm going to go with Bright Eyes. It's my karaoke too. It tells a story. There's layers.
You're not
The Bonnie Tyler song.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Total Eclipse of the Heart?
I thought you. I didn't know if you were talking about like Connor
I was
Oberst.
saying
You don't
Bright
even
Eyes.
know your own song. Are you even a drag queen? No.
I was like,
Bright Eyes. Turn around.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Is she gonna do like a sad emo song? I kind of think that's cool though,
That'd be
right?
fun. Yeah.
But yeah, Total Eclipse.
Oh yeah,
Total
that'd be
Eclipse
a
of the
good
Heart, my
one.
bad.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I would just pick my favorite song, which is "Walk Like an Egyptian" by the Bangles.
Oh, yeah, good choice.
And it's already kind of a very campy song anyway. And nobody can really understand the words to it, so you can just sort of do your thing, which is great.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I definitely like that song too.
Is this the moment where we all lip sync for our lives on the like a sort of like
Not yet.
bracket style? Okay.
We're not quite at the very end.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hold my cards until that point.
Oh, okay.
You know, Fred and I had this all planned out before y'all came over.
Oh.
But let's talk about your favorite drag queens that you both really like, and just give a little highlights so that if people want to learn more, they know who to look up.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start. Katya is definitely my favorite, probably followed by Trixie. I mean, the two of them together is some sort of like just magic where they both have really good comedic timing. They feed each other really well, like, and they're both very different too in terms, and like they're both very clear on what their persona is too. So I think that's something that's always very enjoyable to watch. And a third one, I don't know. It would rotate based on the day or the time of day that you ask me or what show I've recently watched. So we're watching the All Stars All Winners season right now. And Jinx Monsoon is just, there is nobody who performs like her because it's just on another level. And you notice this when we were watching this in the most recent season that's going on right now, where her impersonations, her timing as a talking head, all of it is just like, it's on a level that I can't even comprehend. And it's just so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many more. We could probably give you like a top 20 list, but that would do nobody any good.
That's the assignment.
Okay, I'll pick 3 different ones too. I do love Trixie and Katya. As stated, I do have I love the comedy, like the funny queens who come on. They're funny. What's not to love, So aside from the ones Jenny mentioned, which are like probably everyone's favorites, honestly, Bianca Del Rio. We did see Bianca live too, stand-up comedy tour.
Oh, nice.
She won season 6, the one before the one we told you to watch. So funny. She's a insult comic too, so it's like just ripping people. So yeah, we saw her at the Rivers Pabst at the Pabst. I was gonna go deep. I did. Raven was one of my first favorites. Raven's on season 2. I don't know why. I mean, Raven is now RuPaul's makeup artist. So makeup artistry is excellent. I think a lot of people. I don't know much about this stuff, but like, she kind of changed the game, I think, on a makeup level.
Definitely.
Because it's like the transformation. It's like your nose. I think she does have actually in real life quite a large nose. But like you can make it look different. It's all about changing the contours of your face to be like go from masculine to more feminine features using makeup, which is insane. So that I always loved her. Shea Coulee is another favorite. She's on the curve.
Nice name.
Yeah. Shea Coulee is from...
Oh, Coulee. I thought it was like Robert Goulet.
Shea is from Chicago. And she won one of the All-Star seasons, was on season 9, I want to say, and is currently on the winner's season. The fashion is incredible. It's very referential, like elevating Black women, just very gorgeous. Like every look is like totally thought through. Great performer.
Well, Shea was in, I think wasn't Rihanna's Fenty show that she did on Amazon, and it's just like it was her and another queen. I
think it was Jada.
Was it Jada? I think it was Jada. So Jada Essence Hall from Milwaukee, who won season 12.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
I think she won that All Stars like around that same time.
Yeah, they
Shea
were both
Coulee
right around then. Yeah, and so they were both kind of top of their game, and it was. I mean, they're incredible. They're both very, very talented.
Yeah,
queens.
Jada is kind of known to like she went on in season 12 and made almost all of her outfits, and you're like, these are incredible. People are paying someone to make what she's like.
Man, it is just so crazy that they even have to like make their own clothes too.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Should we do some honorable mentions of drag queens here? I mean, we should.
I'll give you each one.
One. Okay.
Who's Factory? Why can't I remember her name?
That's
You can go beyond one. I was just teasing.
yes, yeah.
Factory.
Yeah, she won
13.
Yeah, 13. Another spoiler alert there. I'm just going to blow the lid off of everything for everyone.
She had amazing looks, too. The runways are awesome.
Honorable mention for me, Bob the Drag Queen.
Oh, yeah. Bob is also a comedian.
Comedian, yeah.
Bob the Drag
Bob
Queen.
the Drag Queen from New York.
And season 8, I think.
Yeah.
One season 8.
So funny.
Yeah.
Is also on We're Here, the HBO series. That's kind of like Queer Eye for drag queens. Just hilarious.
Well, we definitely covered a lot here today, and I think that may bring us here to the end of our episode. But I know we had some very good conversation, and we learned a lot today. I know I certainly did. But one of the last things that we have here is our plug segment. So if you have anything that you would like to promote or plug for yourselves, I don't know if you have anything in particular from work or anything else that you might be working on.
Read the news. Subscribe to your local newspaper.
Would that be the, are you talking about like the Waukesha Press or
Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, potentially?
It doesn't have to be the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. That's where I work, but
Just support local news.
Just support local journalism.
Yes, definitely support local news or journalists, bloggers, and don't let a paywall stop you from that. You know, this is their day job, so please make sure to, support them in any way that you can.
Or NPR.
Yeah, it's only what, like $1 a month or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jenny, anything you have?
Oh, I would just say, I mean, we did all this talking about drag queens. Well, drag queens come up in your local bar scene, so go support your local drag queens. Get your dollar bills ready and head to the bar. Yeah.
If you've never seen one, go and check one out. They're a ton of fun. All are welcome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
This Is It has a lot of drag shows. Hamburger Mary's, previously mentioned.
Yeah, they do a brunch, right?
Drag
brunch. Should be a good entryway if you haven't checked it out.
Yeah,
nice
definitely.
brunch food, nice show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a drag bingo. Find a drag bingo.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
It does sound pretty fun, actually. What about you, Fred? Anything you'd like to plug this week?
I will be in a improv show July 8th with Team Tina at the Interchange Theater. Get your tickets at the Interchange Theater website.
That's the interchangetheater.com. So check it out for tickets. For me, I will just plug our show and our Buy Me a Coffee page. You can buy Fred and I a drink. It's just a couple bucks that we're looking to put back into the show. And honestly, it's just to cover our expenses for the equipment and for the subscription fees on our hosting site. That's all we're really looking for. But if you are enjoying the show and you tell a friend about it, that's as good as a donation. And honestly, your enjoyment is the most that we would ever ask for out of this. And we hope you are loving the show so far. If you're interested in emailing the podcast, you can reach us at stateofthefranchisepodcast@gmail.com. That's stateofthefranchisepodcast, all one word, @gmail.com.
Yeah, feel free to email us, pitch a show if you want to come on. We'll definitely hear it out, right? Even if you live in Brussels.
Yeah.
I know we've got some Brussels listeners out there. We can make a remote call happen if you want to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about.
Brussels, maybe?
Yeah, they can talk about Brussels from Brussels.
Oh.
But I just wanted to say thank you to Lainey and Jenny for both of you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
And I've been waiting all episode to say this. Fred, Shantae, you stay. Lainey, Jenny, sashay away.
Oh.
Thanks for listening to the episode, and we'll see you next time when the topic we'll be discussing is goosebumps.
Spooky.
You're in for a scare.
Good one.
That is a good one.
Arf, 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 arf.
We'll see you then.